Mature forms of integrated business planning can be worth up to 5% of sales annually, but most global manufacturers don't realize this value, primarily because they use immature processes and technologies that can't cope with complexity. This short video helps executives to set a direction that will avoid such missteps and thereby maximize the value of integrated business planning. Integrated business planning has proven to be an effective process in smaller manufacturers, but in global ones, complexity reaches a point where it's much less effective. This happens when manufacturers employ immature and supply chain focused processes, rather than strategic ones that drive the achievement of business objectives. What separates these two extremes is the ability to plan, manage, and govern business outcomes. Why is this important? Because planning, managing, and governing outcomes provides the foundation to achieve business objectives like profitable growth, operational excellence, and the others shown on the screen. What's common to these objectives is that they all require superior cross-functional execution. In other words, they require the absence of functional silos. However, global manufacturers often experience the exact opposite, where integrated business planning processes continue to reinforce them. Silos remain one of the top barriers to achieving most business objectives. 27 of 28 independent research studies identified it as one of the top 3 barriers to improving things like customer experiences, supply chain effectiveness, and strategy execution, while 17 of these studies ranked it as the number 1 barrier. The net result of functional silos is that they can lead to wrong decisions that can have unintended consequences. For example, decisions about products, customers, suppliers, and projects can benefit one part of the organization at the expense of another, or short-term performance at the expense of long-term performance. 4 capability gaps are the primary cause of such unintended consequences, the most common of which is poor visibility into the impact of decisions on interconnected activities and resources. The key point here is that mature integrated business planning processes should address these gaps. In this context, integrated business planning can be viewed as a key enabler of effective complexity management. Such processes improve strategy execution while eliminating the root causes of value erosion, examples of which are shown on the screen. What's shown on the screen are the results of research studies from some of the world's most respected sources. What's common to the underlying issues being studied is that they all stem from an inability to plan, manage, and govern outcomes. In this context, they provide insight into the value of integrated business planning processes that enable effective complexity management, that being that they can significantly reduce the cost to complexity, an amount that can approach 5% of sales. Global manufacturers are having difficulty addressing these complexity costs. One reason is that software solutions lack the capabilities to support mature integrated business planning processes. While they may look good, the underlying processes and analytics have not materially changed. As a result, integrated business planning processes remain stuck at low levels of maturity. This is because solution providers have made little headway in getting beyond supply chain focused processes, either on their own or in combination with other financial applications. What remains are key capability gaps that prevent global manufacturers from establishing mature forms of integrated business planning processes. While many capabilities comprise this gap, 4 of them are the most important to understand. A short description of them is provided on the screen, with separate videos providing further details. These 4 gaps underlie others that are being experienced by financial and operational stakeholders. For example, operational leaders still struggle to establish profit-based and financially integrated processes that engage senior executives. What's not fully appreciated is that these capability gaps are highly interconnected. The most compelling example of this interconnectivity issue lies with cash flow forecasting and scenario planning, especially where integrated business planning processes seek to optimize free cash flow. What's not always recognized is that the models required to support mature cash flow forecasting are the same ones needed for supply planning. In complex settings, it becomes difficult to forecast cash or evaluate cash-based scenarios without understanding the flow of inventory and resource consumption across a supply chain, which explains why cash flow forecasting and scenario planning remain some of the most problematic processes in global manufacturers. To drive this point home, few global manufacturers can simultaneously answer the questions shown on the screen, while also embedding updated plans into rolling forecast processes that support both finance and operations. Such integrated scenario planning capabilities are what most manufacturers seek and also what most lack. The absence of such scenario planning capabilities also mean that they lack a single version of the truth, one where everyone agrees with the projections, risks, and conclusions associated with integrated forecasts. What's not being recognized is that the key capability gaps that we just reviewed are falling between the cracks of financial and operational software solutions. This is especially true of scenario planning because no major vendor has embedded prescriptive analytics and supply chain optimization into processes that support both finance and operations. This is important to understand because in mature processes, the same analytics tool should be used as the basis for evaluating risk across a broad spectrum of financial and operational objectives like profit and cash flow. What's also not being recognized is the need to embed prescriptive analytics into a single planning and performance management process that supports strategy, finance, and operations, and how such processes will integrate traditionally separate applications like those shown on the screen. For this reason, we believe that traditional software vendors are missing the target when it comes to supporting mature integrated business planning processes. One reason for this is that they continue to design planning and performance management solutions in functional silos. Niche integrated business planning solutions, on the other hand, are designed from a holistic perspective to meet the needs of all stakeholders in a single application. What differentiates them are solution architectures that provide the means to leverage and integrate existing process execution and prescriptive analytics technologies. Niche IBP solutions offer a number of advantages, as shown by the graphic on the screen. For example, they maximize the value of integrated business planning processes in global manufacturers while minimizing the time to realize this value. Legacy solutions, on the other hand, don't have these same advantages. Of course, what they do provide is the security of dealing with a larger company with more resources. Underlying the perspective shared in this video is the IBP maturity model shown on the screen. Details of this maturity model are beyond the scope of this video. As a next step, executives need to develop a deeper understanding of the answers to the questions posed on the screen. They especially need to understand the differences between tactical and strategic forms of IBP. Armed with this insight, they can have a better appreciation of how we came to the conclusions that we shared in this video. Provided on the screen are some of the key ideas presented in this video, the main one being that strategic and more mature forms of integrated business planning are capable of improving profits by up to 5% of sales. Understanding the nature and relevance of these value sources should be a key focus of executives that see IBP as a means for driving strategy execution. For further details about the contents of this video, please feel free to use the contact information provided on the screen.